Welcome to Jobsharing and Beyond, the Future of Work podcast that goes beyond the traditional 9 to 5. I am Karen Tischler, speaker, consultant, and host of the show, where we hear from global experts every other week to discover innovative solutions and tips on how to remain a relevant employer in the future. I am really honored to welcome Elly Oldenbourg as my guest. Today's podcast episode will be about what flexible working models have to do with the future of work. Elly is a future of work expert, sidepreneur, and manager at Google. She is a proud Gen Y with an extensive multicultural background, a mother, and has been working in marketing and sales for 16 plus years in various global corporations. For the past 9 plus years, Elly has been a manager at Google, most recently in the EMEA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department. She has been working part-time in the past 4 plus years, mainly as a job sharer. As a sidepreneur, she is the founder and host of thought-provoking salons, a coach, writer, and speaker. I really appreciate this quote from Elly's website, ellyoldenbourg.de. With this nonlinear life of mine, I've been increasingly invited to talk about on the future of work publicly, in which I have been encouraging people to explore new work paradigms, to challenge our structural status quo, and to demystify new work beyond the tools and the buzzwords. I believe we, especially as corporate peeps, need to raise braver demands, not only towards ourselves, but also towards our employers and politicians regarding the way we work, we economize, we incentivize, to finally address the structural changes required for a more just, a more sustainable, and a digitally future-proof tomorrow for everyone. Welcome to the show, Elly.
Hi, Karen. Thank you for inviting me.
It's really nice to have you. We have a lot of people from all over the world listening to us. Could you tell them where you're calling in from and if there's a particular food or site that they should be eating or looking at when they visit your area?
Well, we are having this conversation from my living room in Hamburg, Germany. This is where I'm based for the past years. I'm half Greek, half German, and I was raised in the south of Germany, but now I'm very happy for the past years in the north of Germany, in Hamburg. A local dish. Well, I have been eating vegan for almost 8 years, so I'm not so much into the local fish, especially fish. People love fish up here because we're close to the Northern Sea and the Baltic Sea. But I think I'd better go to sites. Obviously, we have the big Elbphilharmonie here, which was built, I think, 20 times more expensive than it was planned, but nobody cares about it anymore because it's now there. And it is indeed very beautiful, a very beautiful philharmonic opera and concert hall. And yeah, so this is probably the most, and the whole area around the harbor, which is also, I think, since 3 or 4 years, it's a World Heritage Site, an official one. So it's, yeah, Hamburg has a lot to offer.
Well, thank you. I've been a couple of times to Hamburg, and it's really beautiful.
And it's just a stone throw away from Berlin, which is also because so many, especially Northern Americans, it's like Germany is either pretzels, dirndls, beer, or Berlin. And so it's really 1.5 hours to Berlin. So some people even commute on an everyday basis pre-corona, of course. So,
wow. Yeah. Well, now, Elly, you've worked as a manager at Google for many years, and you've recently become a manager as part of the EMEA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team. Now, in my research, I saw you have a favorite quote in these past months, and it's been stop for data to prove that we as a company have a problem. Society has a problem, so we have a problem. Could you please elaborate a bit more on that?
Yes. So for me, I'm on a rotation in that means, so I'm doing like an internal internship at the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion team in our European, your EMEA-wide team, I should say, so Middle East and Africa as well. And I think it is quite, I should say, for many companies in the past 5 years, it's been quite common to have people in HR working on the topic of DEI specifically, because obviously people have realized, companies have realized that there is an economic benefit to it. If you serve a global market, if you serve global users around the world, you should reflect them also in your workforce and your production chain, so to speak. And it's a driver for innovation. And if we talk about diversity, it's obviously not only the dimension of gender, it's the dimension of ethnicity, of age, of sexual orientation, of disableness or not ableness. And so there are a lot of dimensions here. And so I think this whole conversation has been coming from the economic perspective and the economic benefits of it. And this quote I've heard was so great, especially coming from a data-driven company. And obviously there are all the companies that are shareholder value driven, that are, are part of the general globalized economy we are working in. The pressure is high. You are being evaluated either by your shareholders or by your market of growth at the end of the day. And growth is measured very quantitatively in KPIs and certain KPIs. So, and I found this quote so amazing, because it was this realization of, from the one spectrum, you hear people saying like, show me that it's worthwhile doing it. Show me the why. Prove to me that we have a problem. Look at my team. We don't have a problem about diversity. So why should I make it my problem? And this statement I just enjoyed, because it says it acknowledged how much a company, especially the ones very big in size, but even, I mean, if you have 5,000 employees, that's also quite big in size. So it doesn't have to be those huge, massive ones. You are a mirror of society. As soon as you have a crowd of people together, you mirror something that the entire society either struggles with or finds good. And this was what this quote about, hey, we can ask for more research and we can ask for more proofs why we need to invest in diversity. You know what? We shouldn't wait for data. This is something we should have to do anyways, because not only there's a sea full of proofs and research that it is important from an economic perspective, but from an economic perspective, it is, 500 years ago, slavery was also a good idea. So, and taking the world apart is also a good idea. So I think we can be smarter than that and overcome that and support what is just the right thing to do. And that is, if people who we have influence on, and that is in a crowd of people, meaning a company, is if somebody doesn't feel secure, included, not belonged, etc., that obviously also impacts his or her performance, then we should take care of that, if there is a data point or not. So this is why I enjoyed this. And yeah.
Thank you so much. And it's so interesting, because I remember having this communication with somebody with Zurich, UK in England, the insurance company. And I don't know if you know, but they added recently 6 words to their job descriptions. And it was flexible work, job sharing, and part-time. And it made a huge difference in the number of applicants. Not, like female as well as male, and entry level as well as senior level positions. But when I was talking to the gentleman, he had said to me, it took a long time to go and just start it, because as you said, a lot of people were like, well, where is the data that proves that this is a good idea? And he said at some point, we just had to go and say, okay, this is the right thing to do. And then as it proved in his case backwards, so to speak, it made a huge difference. But so thank you very much. That's such a great quote. And
that's music in my ears. So I would love to, if you share with me that research, or if it's even public, I would love to read that and also share it in my. Great, thank you.
I will definitely do this. Yes. And as we're talking, I alluded to job sharing. When I first read about you, I was just so happy to see that you are a job sharing manager at Google. And so I was really curious to find out, how did you first come across about job sharing?
To tell you the truth, Karen, there was never a master plan that I would do job sharing, that I would go on part-time, because obviously that's not the way you imagine a career to go, right? We have very clear paradigms, we have very clear norms and ideas in our working and economy world. So it was not part of my world. But as the quote, God laughs whilst you are making plans, I had it was from a very personal perspective, I had some exogenic shocks in my life that made me rethink, okay, not about my career. I dropped that thinking for a moment, because I thought about, okay, what about life in general? And I looked at my life and said, okay, the number one thing I'm always complaining about, and I hear most people around me in this first world I'm living in complain about, is, I don't have time. I don't have time for this. I'm so rushed. I'm so stressed. And so I don't have time. I wish I had more time. Then I should, blah, blah, blah. So from that perspective, me being a few years back in a vulnerable situation, plus thinking, okay, where is a lever I can actually start to think about? And so all a very personal story here. I said, okay, I think time is a variable I can look at, because I've been struggling with it, and I've been hearing about it. And then I also got pregnant and was on maternity leave, and all of that concluded in, okay, Elly, take all your braveness together, your courage, and why not try? You're 30 years old back then. You have another, let me think, at least 40 years probably to work, however we define work. I'm sure we will talk about that. So why not try something else? Why not approach your employer with a different kind of concept? And I thought about, especially in Germany and the German-speaking countries, working part-time is not completely off. Like, people do that, but as in people, I should say 99% women. It's probably not completely right, but I think the number is 92% of women work in part-time in Germany and only 8% men. So it's a completely stigmatized topic on women, and of that, a huge share of mothers, of course. And they mostly work between 70 and 80%. And I felt to myself, at least, if you do this, you have to go radical. Because otherwise you'll work 80% and get paid 80%, and work another 120%. So I felt like I needed this shift to a massive decrease. And so I talked to Google, and they were like, we have not, that was the first time they got that approach from a person on that level. And so it was not a direct yes, and it was not a direct no. It was we have to talk about this. So I had just many conversations, to tell you the truth. It's not like I ran into open doors, but I didn't run into closed. And at one point in these various conversations, there fell the word job sharing. I was like, what is that? What sharing? What? And it triggered me, and I said, okay, how would that work? And said, it means that we haven't done it in EMEA. So that was a few years back. It means two people are working in part-time on one job that usually is performed by or fulfilled by one person on one headcount, so to speak. You share the headcount. And I said, well, that sounds interesting. I'm totally up to this. And then I just continued the many conversations I had, and it happened to be how the universe works that I found a person who said, you know what, I would like to decrease as well. I was like, well, I love the job you're doing, and I would love to apply on that. So we just, then put our heads together, our hearts together also a little bit, because you have to trust each other, and said, okay, let's try, let's give it a pitch. And they agreed, on with a testing phase. And then yeah, it worked out, and with that my first job sharing was born. And since then, my subline in my email, how do you say it? My email signature, it says, life is short and so is my work week. I work Monday through Wednesdays only, and in other cases, please contact my job sharing partner XYZ. I have to say, though, I did switch job sharing partner once. After 2 years, the person I work with left. So I got the opportunity to work alone, so to speak, in part-time for half a year. And that was a completely different ball game, completely different. So working alone, never having the sounding board when you leave the office or try to, I'm going to the playground now or doing something for myself, then you see those emails coming in and your pressure runs high again. So that was completely different. And now this rotation I've been doing, I've been also working alone for the first month. So it's really interesting. I think flexibility are from all perspectives. Okay. It's not only the employer giving flexibility, it's also vice versa.
It just sounds so interesting. And now, can you share to people who might be thinking, wow, job sharing, I would really like to try this. What was the thing that surprised you the most about job sharing?
Well, that it existed.
Okay.
What you could hear, I just didn't know about it. I felt like, wow, part-time is already stigmatized, but job sharing sounds super exotic. What is that? Will I lose, will anyone take me serious still? Like this, like the stigma it had, the stereotypes, so to speak. What surprised me the most? The benefits surprised me the most. First, I thought it's like, okay, we'll share this job. We have the same OKRs, and I trust you, you trust me, and okay, let's go. We're a very close team. It felt to me, but it was somehow different because I realized this inner. Through a certain catharsis. Obviously, it's not like it works from day one. No, that's fine. The activation energy in a job share might be higher than when you start running alone, but that's okay. It's the long-term benefits you want to see, right? And realizing this catharsis of me internally and also the person I work with, moving from me to we, so to speak, and really feeling yourself as I consciously choose this word now, a resource for what you are supposed to do, and not how can I make myself visible? Who do I have to write CC? Or what do I? This whole political game decreased a lot, which gave a lot of freedom also to really do the work. Part-timers are known anyways to be very productive, but also to use that sounding board, that constant coaching partner you have, to feel like it's okay if I'm not at the table. Your ego is being worked with. That surprised me. It's like, no, my corporate ego, it's good that I have it, but it's also good not to have it when she fails or he fails a decision that I might not totally agree with. We talk about it, but still I'm behind it because this person, we are one team. And yeah, so that's not a very clear answer, but it's those implicit maybe experiences that have surprised me the most. But that also brought the most benefits to it.
It just sounds really fascinating. Now, I'm sure people are listening out here and thinking, I work for a big corporation and job sharing has not been something that has been discussed. Now, you said you have had a lot of conversations initially to make this happen. So for anybody out there, what would you give them as tips on how do you best approach it? Are there any suggestions you have from your experience and what you have learned on trying to approach maybe HR and say, I would love to do job sharing?
Yeah, that's a tough one, obviously, because I know how, not only from my work at Google, but also from the other companies I get to look into. It's about you become also a bit of a advocate, like a loud voice for something that is in a dusty corner that nobody wants to look at. So if you start talking about job sharing, that is even more exotic than part-time in a system that doesn't even care about not care, but doesn't even have structures for part-time, you have a hard time, full stop. And I know you're the crowd that listens to your podcast is, around many, many countries, but especially in North America, it's just not common. And I would say in APAC neither, because they didn't see a necessity for it. It's, I know the US a bit because I have family there, and 2 jobs is very common to have. Why should you even have half a job? Like, that sounds like utopia, socialist utopia, maybe even. So you become a bit of you have to be clear that you will not run only into open doors. But I think that is okay as long as you have a bit of stamina and agree that with you doing that, with you not only confronting people, just talking about it, having that dialogue. And if the first no is a no, it doesn't have to say that the second no is a no. You're starting a dialogue, a reflection process for anyone. And just being open that obviously the other side, whoever that is, has the freedom to express their needs and worries as well. And obviously in a system that is very well oiled, where that does not have room, it might take some time. And so this is, I think, the internal prep I would do, because it's not about only getting your way, only getting your thought, only if I don't get this, I will go, and, to be on a war zone inside, but rather an open, flexible, it's all about flexibility. So let that liquid communication come, maybe like this. So that's the internal tip I would give. And the external one is, just find your allies, talk a lot about it, make it a topic on many conversations you have, especially in big corporations, you have performance cycles. So just if you would like, to then have it in there, have it your standing position in there. Not only with HR. HR are sometimes, those poor people are sometimes even more part of a system, right? Mm-hmm. Find allies on, the management level, on your manager, first of all. If it's not your manager who supports it for whatever reason, then find other managers, find lookalikes, so to speak, find people who might be interested in it, just to talk about it and realize that this is not only about you, it is also about we as a society have to think about new ways of using our time anyways. This is something you're preparing yourself for, something bigger here anyways, especially, and I will not be tired of saying this, especially if people who might listen to this have the privilege of having a job in a big corporation. And I think if we never use this privilege, how will we ever be able to lobby for something bigger than just some nitty-gritty, exotic Ellys and Karins walking about and talking in podcasts about it? So I think to remind that, I think is at least helps me a lot. Let's put it like that.
Thank you. This is so important. Now you're very involved in new work, or the future of work, as some people call it. And you're a sidepreneur. Could you share more about this? And also, what is your definition of work?
I'm a bit hesitant because it's if people ask me, so who are you, please, Elly? And I was like, I'm a lot because I like to change my hats. That's part of my DNA, but also part of my life stage. Ask me in 5 years again, and maybe it's different. So I think that's fair. But now there are many hats I'm wearing. So 3 days a week I'm doing my corporate job, and I love that one. And the other 4 days a week, which I love to say because I look at my week on a 7-day basis and not on a 5-day basis. I am partly a sidepreneur. Yes, I have a little business where I offer coaching, mentoring. I do a lot of speakings. Sometimes I write a bit, and I have a thought-provoking salon here in Hamburg with a little podcast where I just speak to philosophers, historians, economists about the world and its challenges and its solutions. And also sometimes, I'm a mother also, not to forget, of a 6-year-old. There's also some things to do. I have a very big family. I have a relationship. I do like to spend time in my relationship as well. I have hobbies. So it's this well-rounded Elly, that seems coherent to me. And part of that is my sidepreneurship. I got this word 2 years ago or something. I found it really appealing because it's so entrepreneur on the side, and it raises some eyebrows. Let's put it like that. But so I'm not building this super duper startup on the side. My exit strategy. No, I just like to have on the side a little business and explore other things around me. And yeah. And if you talk about the future of work, at least in my mind, what I've learned over the past, from my personal experience, but also from the many panels I've been to, the many discussions I had, the books I read, etc., it's like, let's talk about work, but then let's talk about all the work that makes a life not only worth living, but that makes the planet worth living, and that makes us be socially just with each other and all of that, and not only about this one side, paid work.
I couldn't agree more with you, Elly. And thanks to Aviva Wittenberg-Cox's Forbes article, the latest thing that I have seen is that Unilever is having this new model of flexible work called UWork, whereby they are realizing that multiple generations are basically interested in flexible work, whether that is somebody younger wanting to do a side hustle, somebody who is a parent, or somebody older who might be wanting to ease in more into retirement and not do, from going 100% to nothing. And so their model is basically that they have, I guess, a basis income, and then based on the flexibility or work availability, then they put together a work schedule or a project-based schedule. And that's something they started, I guess, last year in England and are rolling it out now into 5 countries. And to me, I'm a big Unilever fan because they've done Jobsharing for a long time. And, it was just an article that came out a couple of days ago. And so to me, it's just great to see more and more discussions and ideas on how can we, to your point, look at the whole aspect of work. And I'm a big proponent of looking at transferable skills from unpaid care work or volunteering. And I feel that is so undervalued. And because it is undervalued, it then also reduces, in my mind, the business confidence of women often, but in general, anybody who does that. And when they try and come back, if they get perceived to be, well, this person has taken a career gap, when in reality, it is a practical course of soft skills, which the World Economic Forum actually sees as important skills to be had, and more the emphasis becomes on these skills. So
has to, because machines will take any hard skills over anyways, but in a much better way than we can do it. So absolutely,
yeah. And so I don't know, it's like I always try to find new ways or more arguments to, tell people or explain why that is so critical.
I didn't hear about it. I love what you just described. I did read the article that you sent previously through. And it also acknowledges the part that a company plays in a society in general. It's like, we do value if someone takes off time to serve the direct society we are a player of. And I remember that Microsoft did in 2019, I think, the 4-day week experiment, which I found more interesting than the idea itself. So they're experimenting something in Japan. And I remember reading in some article, I didn't read it everywhere, but that they said, well, and they also, let's say not suggested, but invited people, gave them ideas and inspiration what to do with their free day, which is sad on one side, right? If you have to suggest that. But on the other hand, it's like, there are some volunteer works here to do. There's this to do. There's, did you think about your grandparents? Like a list of, I never saw that list, but this is what I'm anticipating it was, to acknowledge like we are part of a community of real people. We're not only producing stuff for somewhere along a production chain. No, we acknowledge that you are real people with our community having real needs. And I really like that. And what I loved about what you just said is also that it acknowledges the fact of this age perspective, especially since, and this I read with Rutger Bregman in his Utopia for Realists. He said it so nice, like, job sharing is something that is so important for the future of work, because it's especially combining those skills and competencies of the ones who are super skilled or super experienced, I should say, and the ones who are in the rush hour of their life anyway. So the ones are totally stressed out, like my age, so to speak, and the other ones feel like, oh my God, I'm approaching, I don't even know what to do, who will I talk to, what can I share, what can I contribute, self-effectiveness, the feeling of contributing, etc. And perfect to merge that, especially when the time comes when half of the jobs will fall away anyways because of automation, etc. So it sounds like a great trial Unilever is doing there, and being ready for the future, literally, instead of trying to juggle office or home office. I'm really tired about hearing people saying, well, this is now new work and the future of work since we're home office and you can come to the office today. It's like, no, this is a location strategy. This has nothing to do with the future of work, literally speaking, like the future, the real future for this world and its work. So again, this brings me, I try always to come back. It's like, okay, if we want to talk about not only the future of work, it's really the presence of work, and it's the presence of our economy and what we incentivize and how we measure value created, right, by merely quantitative output. This is bringing the planet to fall, and we're on the verge of, at least in the in most parts of the world, especially in the first world, bringing people down as well. Look at the high burnout rates and the high ADHD and all of that that comes together, the psychological problems we have. So it's not like anyone is benefiting from the idea of putting people under more pressure and bringing in more time in a world that is so digitalized. I mean, what did digitalization promise us? To have more ease? No, our calendars are fuller than ever. So,
well, thank you so much, because one of my guests, Alex Suyang Kim Peng, he wrote the book Shorter and Rest, and he just exactly what you said. At the end of the day, working fewer hours actually gives people more time to be more creative and to really think about things. And to your point, it reduces the burnout. So in the long run, it has many positive effects. But I think one has to, sometimes people like to see maybe more data. Again,
I promise you, we have all the data in the world. And I know the number one problem we have is the word long-term, you said. We are never, all these big corporations, most of us, if you're not part of a, startup that is completely green and all of that, we are valued as countries, GDP, on short-term turnaround. So this impact we are referring to, this long-term, benefit of it will always lose in this current systemic structures we're working in. So that is at least my take at the moment from it, which is a bit frustrating and disillusioning. But at the end of the day, it's also like, yeah, we need to talk about the structural things. I'm a bit tired, I have to be honest, to being, asked to talk about my experience and all of that, because it's like I'm an individual. I found an individual solutions, but no, I don't want to convey individual solutions anymore. We need to have structural solutions, because we have freaking structural problems.
Yeah, no, and that's why I so appreciate having you here and share with people your experience, but then magnifying it on a bigger scale. And I was looking at a post you recently made about the experience you've recently had in your new position. And there was this great worksheet from the racial equity trainer Tema Okun. And so the one, I looked at the different points, and one of them I thought was so important, and you mentioned it, is like to look at the holistic view of people versus just the title, and that people's experiences and skills really are so beyond their job title. And I feel we need to really look at that on a maybe like look at more at skills as a whole rather than at titles. And I think that would then also help to your point, like allowing the whole person the skills they have learned anywhere in their work, whether that is unpaid work or volunteering, to come and move society forward, because it really allows everybody to put their best foot forward. But I just feel we need to talk more about it. We need to have more advocates, and and to put it on a bigger scale. And maybe I'm too idealistic, but that's
no, it needs that idealism also, and no, it needs that internal motivation, I think, to be an advocate for it. I would add to your list, though, it needs way more role models, If this stays a stigma of, I will use it again as a symbol, some Karens and some Ellys running around and talking about it. We need like major C-level people who decrease their work hours to say, and you know what I would love to hear? It's just, I will try it. I will experiment. It's not about this is what I'm doing and forever and this is the best thing. No, let's learn together about this. I mean, it's also part of the World Economic Skills of the future, lifelong learning, and also sharing that empathy and vulnerability of what worked and what didn't. And that's totally fine if it didn't work for your life stage. So it's not like working flexible is the solution for everything. No, but it's acknowledging we have to change something and going on a way and using one lever that seems highly underestimated now, especially at big companies, and hardly anyone is using it, and anyone is seeing also their privilege of being able to use it. And from that, if more people with that privilege, and I'm talking it out here, the financial privilege also to say I will step back, not from a need, also from a demand, from a need because I have to do a care about, no, because I can. Huge privilege, but then again, be aware this is very important, and I would love to see more men, and especially on higher levels, to do that and to realize and to share all the benefits and maybe not that they experience.
And I so appreciate that, because I feel until it is all equal, we need more, especially men, as role models of flexible work, of publicly talking about the care work they are doing. And so every time somebody does that, I make sure to, further mention this and broadcast it. And sometimes people say, well, so many women step down to say enable their respective partner to have more time to do work. And I'm saying until it is equal, we have to emphasize male role models, because there are so many junior male professionals who might simply be too scared to ask to have an extended paternal leave, or to ask to do part-time work, job sharing. And one of
I think even more senior ones are. They then have, I don't know, more houses or whatnot, where they think I can pay my mortgage. But at the end of the day, that's not only the point. It's like, I think it's throughout. But I mean, I love this word. Imagine a world where every job would be shared in a company. How much broader, well-informed decision would we fail? Yeah. How much more have those people who fail those decisions have slept just on that basis? How much more, whatever, they will come from better relationships, they will be emotionally, mentally, physically more fit. and they will have way more perspectives. Yeah. We are having now diversity teams who try to, work in diversity, and we have diversity consultants to bring a more representative view of markets. I mean, we hire people to do that. You have it if you would more share and more, share responsibility and jobs and step down a bit of those long established C-levels we have in so many directions. Like that would be the perfect way, by the way, in politicians as well, in the economy, to have also the predecessor discussion. Oh my God, all those politicians, it would be all solved because, the one I'm learning from someone younger and vice versa. Yeah. So I think this imagining how a world would look, obviously that's utopia, but utopian images help us to start stepping and move.
Right. And one example, I interviewed Ian Shepherd in England. And so he's job sharing, and he doesn't have care work. He's doing it because he feels he actually does a better job, because he feels happier. He feels that because of the ability to exchange opinions, to have a sounding board, he feels he can make better decisions. And he actually said he is...
What a smart person.
And he's actually, leading a team of nearly 200 people in a job sharing capacity. And what he also acknowledged, he said he likely is going to work longer and his retirement is going to be later because of the fact that he is working job sharing. But, I always look at it, sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to retire at whatever, 65, 70, and then I do X, Y, Z. Well, how are they able, what if from a health perspective, they simply will not able to do this, or who knows what might happen. I feel, you have one life, you might as well, use it and use your skills and do so many different things. Yeah. So.
Well, and what you just shared, and that's the personal perspective and the personal view. So from a human perspective, but also that combined with how the world is moving, how it's changing, how the working world is moving, the demands of the working world, the automation where many jobs are falling away, the big prosperity scissors that is growing and growing and growing, the climate crisis. Compared with that, it's a necessity from all perspectives, but obviously too many decision makers in political and economic spheres are bound to think more short term, and that's, so to speak, the game. So I'm hoping that those conversations, especially on the future of work, and hoping to have it more holistically, but starting so talk about holistically, understand it, reflect on it, but then be very practical. And a practical first step is surely starting to make flexible work the new norm, because then you reach completely different people. As you said, maybe like a how do you say, not part-time parent, what am I saying, single parent would more likely even file in an application at a company where they, like Google or a big insurance, where they would feel way too intimidated because they know it's such a hard-working machine and it's all about performance. And it truly is about performance, but I just have 50% of the time. And if they would see, wow, I can actually give in my application, you would get completely different people also.
Exactly.
So it's not only about gender, and also you would get different people.
Yeah. And so, and you're absolutely right. It would make a much more diverse workforce. And that's what I feel, as my background and advocacy is for professionals returning back to paid work. I truly believe there is so much potential lost, as well as a different experience that could lead to a more diverse workforce, and therefore to more innovation, to more creative problem solving. So I could talk with you forever about this, Elly, but is there anything we haven't talked about that you would like our listeners to know?
I think we covered a lot. The only thing I would say is we did a lot of this was not a hugely critical conversation we had. So obviously we are both preaching to the converted,
Yes.
which is fine, which inspires hopefully people as well. And I think what we are both, and the people who talk about this, it's important we acknowledge this is not the solution to everything. This is not about saying this is like the number one and then the world will be fine. No, but it's a very, very critical segue and lever that hardly anyone uses. So if you go down that route of thinking about it, if you have the privilege to think about it, then please, it's not only about your own life. It is something you're doing also, not only for your children. I don't want to be too moral, but it is a bigger cause here because you're practicing something we might have to do in 10 years anyways. And so it's actually, inviting the life and world more into going into the right direction and not only solving a single problem. I think that is my last words.
Thank you so much, Elly. Now, where can people find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn and on Instagram, and I have also an English website where I just, put all my interviews in. I will put yours in as well. This is ellyoldenbourg.com.
Thank you very, very much, Elly. It was such a fascinating conversation, and I really, really appreciate that you were my guest. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. We hope you gained valuable insights and new ideas. To keep listening to future episodes, please head over to iTunes or your favorite player and subscribe and give it a rating. We would very much appreciate a review and for you to share it on social media, so more people can start innovating in how they offer employment. Until the next time, goodbye.